Hera here, and I am excited to talk about habits. I have some fascinating research from ChatGPT that we're going to talk about, and really excited to help you manage risk. All right, we're going to wait a minute and get started. Check my notes. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to Choose Your Hard. A shitty life is hard, a great life is hard, and that's an important lesson that it took me a long time to learn. Totally honored that you are here. Let's jump in. Today, we're going to be talking about managing risk if you are struggling with any addiction, any bad habit, or any poor coping strategies. I want to talk a little bit about what risk management is, how to measure it, how important it is in business, and how ridiculously important it is in your personal life, and give you a framework for managing risk in a healthy, constructive way so you can create better outcomes. A little bit about my personal story. My name is Craig Perra. I'm the founder of the Mindful Habit System, and I've been helping men and their partners change their lives for the past 12 years. People struggling with sex addiction, porn addiction, gambling, alcoholism, you name it. The Mindful Habit System has helped. Now, obviously, we're not a fit for everybody, but we do change lives. We also have a money back guarantee. So, I want to talk about risk management, and I want to share with you a story when I was an inpatient. Here we are now at my lowest point. Just to put things in perspective, I had moved my family cross country because I got fired from my job back east. I was assistant general counsel for $1 billion insurance company. I was an attorney. Great job. No, I was in sabotage mode. I was acting out. I lied to my boss about something stupid. I was using drugs with prostitutes. I was essentially out of my gourd. And because I was out of my gourd, I made a professional mistake and lied about something that was so stupid. If those of you who've been following me before, my wife wakes up and says, "Are you eating cereal?" No. I got a bowl of cereal in my hands, a spoon in my hands, a box of cereal next to me. Just that automatic, instantaneous lie got me fired, as well I should be. But I'm the comeback kid. I got a new job out here in California. I ran $1 billion company's compliance department, and it wasn't long before I resorted to old ways. This time I wasn't addicted to heroin. I'm now addicted to bath salts, having an affair with a number of prostitutes, another low. I tried to hurt myself at that low point because I had gotten fired. And I'll never forget this. There's a whole bunch of this downward spiral that I will never forget, but I'll never forget, and it's where this tattoo skill means come from. If you know what that term means, you'll know what I'm talking about. Skillful means essentially means to teach with wisdom. And I'm sitting there at my inpatient place, and I really wasn't digging it. I couldn't wait to get out so I could use drugs again, which is exactly what I did when I got out. And I was really rebelling against a job that I hated as a result of me being such a mess emotionally, physically, spiritually. I was a terrible husband. I was actually abusive to my wife, really shameful. But I'm an inpatient now. And the guy who's lecturing us, an inpatient, starts to talk about risk. And he says how important it is for us as addicts to be able to manage risk in our personal lives. And he said, just like great companies manage risk in their professional lives. And I'm a risk manager. I'm in charge of compliance. This is what I do for a living. And I remember saying to myself, if he says risk is frequency times severity, I'm going to explode. And that's exactly what he said. Risk equals frequency times severity. Frequency is how often the bad thing is going to happen. Severity is how bad the thing is if it's going to happen. So if you've got a chance that only something happens only once, but that one thing is really bad, you need to plan for it. You need to proactively manage risk. Risk management is critical professionally. You will not find an organism. Risk management is critically, I'm going to try that one more time. Risk management is mandatory for a business. There is no way a business can grow without managing its risks. Here's the thing about organizations that I've learned. If it's right for the organization, there may be some parallels to the human condition. And just like businesses need to manage risk, we need to manage risk. So if you know that something bad is going to happen, for example, every time you drive down this street, if you know something bad is going to happen every time your wife leaves you alone, then you need to manage that risk. And let me tell you something about human beings and why this is easier than it looks. We are habit machines. Okay, so check this out. I asked ChatGPT, is it true that we humans are habit machines? And ChatGPT says yes. It is broadly true that human beings can be described as habit machines due to the significant role that habits play in shaping behavior and decision making processes. The concepts of habits being central to human behavior is supported by a wealth of research across various fields, including psychology, neuroscience, and sociology. Habits are pervasive in human behavior, serving as automatic responses to specific stimuli, and they evolve from repeated actions. These habitual behaviors are often executed without conscious deliberation, highlighting the machine like efficiency with which humans can operate under habitual influence. And in fact, we need habits to survive. So, anyway, this goes on, explain how habitual we are. And that's a good thing. And the reason that's a good thing because we can plan for it. And one of the first things that clients do when they join the mindful habit system, and that is to identify their red zone. And the red zone is the time, the place, on the device when you are out of control. And here's the thing about the red zone. So I used to think that the red zone operated under an 80-20 rule, meaning 80% of the bad habits, the compulsive behavior, the addiction is happening in 20% of the time, 20% of the place, 20% of the device, 20% of the situation, 20% in response to the specific stimuli, but it's not the 80-20 rule. It's the 90-10 rule. And what that means is that 90% of the acting out behavior is happening at 10% of the time. And even if your acting out behavior is scattered throughout the course of the day, it is happening within very precise parameters, in very specific situations, in response to, for example, the common excuse I hear is being bored. I reject that excuse unequivocally. That is not what's happening for most people. No man out there is throwing his marriage away, throwing his family away because he's bored. This is the subject for another podcast. The fact of the matter is that person can't sit for a second within themselves because they have such a deep and profound sense of self-loathing. And that's when the demon comes. The demons come when you're alone. What are you numbing, coping, and escaping from? It's not boredom, although that's certainly part of it. There are deeper underlying issues, not the subject of this podcast. We'll get to this in another one. I want to talk more about risk management. I want to talk about the red zone. And the red zone is you looking at your life, looking at not just when the acting out behavior is occurring, but the habits and states of mind that give way to the acting out behavior. So, for example, let's say that the chances of me blowing a gasket when I'm alone is very high. And the impact of me blowing a gasket and acting out when I'm alone is very high. It can destroy my business. It can destroy my marriage. It will hurt my wife's feelings. It'll make me feel really bad, even though I have the tools to respond to it. And I'll do everything I can to fall down and get back up. There's a lot of damage to be done. And so that's my red zone. And so you have to find your red zone or red zones, plural. And a lot of times people come into this thinking it's too overwhelming. It's happening all over the place. It's not. One thing, if you're talking about sex and porn addiction, it's happening every time you are alone. So If being alone is your red zone, and that is so true for so many guys, this is when the Smashing Pumpkins song comes to mind. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in the cage. And mommy leaves, and you're free. And you can do whatever you want. And you combine that with the low self-esteem that you're escaping from. Those are very powerful motivators to escape from those uncomfortable feelings. That is your red zone. Your red zone might be in the bathroom at a specific place at a specific time. That's your red zone. So, one way to identify your red zone is locations. So, let's say I'm going to use this as an example. I'm out of my gourd. I'm acting out like crazy. My wife just caught me, and I got to do everything in my power to not lose my marriage, not lose my family. So, first, where do I act out the most? Because listen, if even if you are all over the place because of the 90-10 rule, the 95-5% rule, if you can impact that area where most of the acting out is occurring, then you might not eliminate it, but if you can impact that window when that acting out is occurring, when 80% of it is occurring, when 90% of it is occurring, that's a huge impact. You can leverage that growth to create more momentum and to have the power and strength to address the other areas. If you know your red zone, you can instantly begin having an impact. And the first time you come up with a red zone, you might fail, but that's true about any risk management plan. You may not get it right the first time. The essence of the red zone is that you define as precisely as humanly possible when you are going to act out actively, meet needs reactively, or feel out of control. When is that happening? Where is that happening? On what device is that happening? So if it's happening where I do my work, remember, I'm Joe, I'm a character who just got caught, and most of my acting out happens in my home office. Okay. My home office right now, I'm Joe, it's a mess. I feel shame every time I walk in. So the red zone plan there's two phases to it. Phase one of the red zone plan is identifying that location and taking steps to not do the thing. So, what can I do during this time to not do the thing? I can call somebody, I can plan a call when I'm most vulnerable. I can plan some reading, a Bible verse if that's something that inspires me. I can exercise. I can sit there and practice being bored and sitting in it. So, first step is what can I do? What actions can I take to not do the thing? The second step, and this is my favorite step because this is the break a habit, make a habit step. How can that red zone transform into a place of growth, into a place of healing? How can I make that space, which was once a space of shame, to now be a place of inspiration? So I'm going to hang up some cool quotes on the wall. I'm going to hang up some pictures on the wall. I'm going to put up my family to inspire me to be a better man. So at first, when you are first creating your red zone, step one is what can you do instead of acting out to minimize the chances that you are going to act out. So that requires you to identify your red zone as specifically and precisely as you can. And that requires you to make a list of specific actions that you can take so you don't do the thing. Because remember, the golden rule of behavior modification is to break a habit, you have to make the right habit with the right need. The reason why you have to do that is because almost all behavior is need seeking behavior. You are a habit machine. You have been rewarding yourself and escaping from that discomfort at that time, in that place, in that chair, on that device for years in some cases. And remember, what wires together fires together. So if we're going to create identity change, if we're going to go from a place of, no, I can't do that, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't, if we're going to go from a place of I can't do it to I don't do that anymore. That's identity change. No, I don't self harm. No, I value my family. I prioritize what's important. I live my purpose. I have distress tolerance skills. I manage fear effectively. I've learned that failure equals opportunity. I have gratitude. I live and honor my purpose. I don't do that anymore. That does not mean, by the way, you don't get triggered to do it 1,000 times, especially when you get hungry, angry, lonely, tired, scared, anxiety, stress, fear. So, step one of the red zone is not doing this thing. Step two of the red zone is that identity change. You want that space to reflect the new you. You want to reclaim that space. You want to take that space, which was your greatest source of shame, and you want to turn that space into a great source of inspiration. And that's how you use your bad habits to create massive growth in your life. You use your bad habits to create identity change. And if you don't know what that is, I highly recommend the book Atomic Habits. Everybody listening to this podcast, whether you are a man, whether you are a woman, put Atomic Habits by James Clear at the top of your list. It is the best book on habits, period. And in his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about 3 levels of change. The first level of change is process change. So that might be level 1 of your red zone plan. Here are the things that I'm going to do not to do the thing anymore. Here are a list of actions that I can do to keep myself from doing the acting out behavior. Step 2 is outcome change. Yes, I use that process to create the outcome. I am now sober. I am not doing the thing. That's red zone plan number 1. Red zone plan number 2 is the third level of change and the only change that produces sustainable change in your life, and that is identity change. So your red zone goes from first reactive, finding that time, shutting it down, doing whatever you can to leverage that 80-20 rule or 90-10 rule, which means that 80% of the behavior is so often happening in 20% of the circumstances. If you can hit that 20% hard, you can create significant results quickly. For most people, it's not 80-20, it's 90-10. If you can hit that 10% hard, you can create significant change quickly. And you do it through the 2-step red zone plan. Step 1, here are the list of things that I'm going to do to not do the thing. And step 2 is, here is me reclaiming the space. So, for example, a lot of my acting out happened in the car. I had a nice car, but I treated it like shit. I smoked in it. I used drugs in it. I drove around for hours in the nighttime doing sketchy things in it. And it was a source of great shame. And before I sold it, I wasn't able to sell it right away because I got fired and we were broke. But before I did, I reclaimed it. I put some quotes, a statue on the dashboard, some quotes stuck at various places throughout. I cleaned it. I wanted my outside to look like my inside. So I had to reclaim the car. I had to take it back. I had to make this space, which is a source of so much shame, into a source of pride. It became a reflection of my purpose. It had artifacts in it, like quotes and statues and cleanliness that reflected how I wanted to feel about myself. And so that is the red zone plan. It is critically important for everyone to have their red zone plan. And it is, no, it didn't work. Listen, it doesn't always work. That's the essence of risk management, but it can work better. So you having a red zone plan is essentially what a company does to manage risk. And the way a company gets better at managing risk is they get better at managing risk. They find out what works, they find out what doesn't work. So if you have a block of time at a specific location, on a specific device, or a specific substance at a specific time in response to a specific external stimuli, use the red zone plan first to begin to take some of that time back and use it as a source of inspiration, So your red zone plan reflects the you that you wish to become. And the space that was your source of shame is now your source of pride. Let me know if you have any questions or comments in the chat. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Craig Perra, the founder of the Mindful Habit System. And you can visit me on the web at www.mindfulhabithelp.com. And if you are struggling, if you are a man struggling with compulsive sexual behavior, you can use the coupon podcast to get 36% off our core training program. It's normally $499 for 16 weeks. It is $185 for 3 months for those same 16 weeks. And if you use the coupon code podcast, you get access to the entire Mindful Habit system, the lessons, the exercises, the trainings, and you get access to a weekly webinar where you can ask me questions. And we can talk more about your red zone and anything else that you need to talk about. Thank you so much for listening. Honored that you're here. Wish you well. Embrace your power of choice and feed the right wolf inside you. Bye, everybody.